Everyone. I hope that you are having a great evening. I'm a minute late. Please, my apologies for that. But I want to get directly into our presentation tonight. As always, I am just grateful to be able to share information with you. It is important to me that we continue on this pathway of learning together. And so my name is Tamara Gibson. I'm the owner of TT Innovative Solutions. And tonight's topic is monitoring progress. All week long, I have put up domains and it is dimensions. So I want to apologize for that. But we are focusing today on 3 areas of focus that can get you more points. It is evaluation season. I remember posting that earlier today. And most of the time, this is around the time where we have so much going on, but people are now starting to come and schedule your 45s. And I wanted to provide you with some assistance, be able to help you to be more confident as you are presenting in front of other people. Okay. And with that said, let's jump right into it. The T TESS. So I guess let me back up just a little bit. The T TESS is a Texas comprehensive teacher evaluation system here in Texas. That is how teachers are evaluated. We have the opportunity to score in a range of areas, and I'll share with you that a little later. But right now, I want to make sure that we understand what progress monitoring is and how T TESS and myself believe that we can attack and make certain that we are covering the things that we want to cover. So it's a systematic process in which yourself, your teachers, you as a teacher, are going to be able to monitor your students' behavior and responses when they are taking assessments. Okay. You're also going to be able to track progress from beginning of the school year all the way to the end, seeing how well and how much they have learned and how much information they've come. And also you will see some deficits as you go along. And then finally, taking the appropriate actions based on what the students' outcomes have been to drive instruction, because that's what this all is about. I think it was last week that I talked to you a lot, 2 weeks ago, that I talked to you about assessments. And so I want you to know how all of this stuff that I'm talking about is intertwined, and that you are aware of the expectation that you have as an educator when you are presenting in front of your students, not just when somebody else is in your classroom, but definitely understanding how you're going to be scored when they're in your classroom. And so that brings up our next information, and that is the T TESS dimension 1.2. This again is data and assessments. Okay, so I talked to you about all these data and how you collect it and different measures of that part. But in this particular one, you are using formal and informal assessments, and you are taking it in order to analyze the data that is collected so that you can then, as I said before, drive instruction. It is a roadmap. It is information that has been gathered to help you to continue to build an effective roadmap. And so tonight, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about this in front of you. I'm just going to preference by saying at the lowest level, you can be scored at improvement needed all the way up to distinguished. And what I tell my new and aspiring educators, anyone that is between 0 to 5 years, you are shooting for accomplished, but you might end in the proficient area. And you can see from the descriptors that are on the screen that there's more depth to accomplish and distinguish. And of course, we want to get to distinguish. But we also want to make sure that you are not, uh, I guess, beating yourself down if you are scored in the accomplished and the proficient range, because it means that you are where typically you need to be because of your limited understanding of certain things and your experience level. Okay. And I'm not telling you you're not a rock star, because you are in your own right in my book, because you are in the classroom day after day fighting to improve the education of students and making sure that they get what they need. Okay. So I want to preface that by just, making sure that you understand what this is all about. And then I'm going to make some connections a little bit later to one of the tests that we here at TT Innovative Solutions provide test preparation for. And that is special ed. Now, I could have chosen any of the other ones that we assist with, but again, I like to spotlight at least one, so that you are aware of how it's intertwined into these things, because the stuff is connected. I can't say it enough that I've spoke to so many educators that it seems isolated, but you are doing these things day in and day out in your classroom. And now it's time to understand how they work together. Okay. So I like the portion down at the bottom that talks about possible sources of evidence, because it's some things that we're going to point out a little bit later. Student growth and processes, conferences, and conversation. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. But I love the fact that the TEA has provided some tips and descriptors to help us to know where we are and where we fall. Okay, so let's get straight into it. I have 3 points to make to you, and up first is giving specific timely feedback. So this is a quote that I really like from Grant Wiggins. It says, learners need endless feedback more than they need endless teaching. And as a new educator, a lot of time we're just kind of pounding through the lessons, making sure that we cover everything that needs to be covered. And that is not the best and most effective method for you to understand whether your students are moving along the pendulum the way that they're supposed to move. The best and most effective method is to give some information, give some practice, and then see if they understood that information. Okay. And so the point that I'm trying to drive home here is that not just any kind of feedback either. Okay, because feedback can be a grade on a paper. You got a 80%. Okay, but specific feedback can then you have the opportunity to tell them exactly where they went wrong, to get into their thinking pattern. I love to tell the kids during math, make sure that you put your thinking on the paper. The same when you're doing for reading, go back and find me evidence so I know where they went wrong. Okay, so you're giving timely feedback and specific. Timely. So once upon a time, and I'll tell myself as an educator in my first couple of years, I would go take all of the composition booklets home, and I would do my best to grade them all at one time. And that worked probably about a week or two. And then I would fall asleep with compositions on my lap. And it would be times later, weeks later, that I would give them the feedback. But they have been practicing that same thing because I didn't have the time or the opportunity to correct them. And so it's very important for us to be able to make the necessary, give them the necessary feedback in a timely fashion. Because it might be, yes, you're doing great, keep going. Or it might be, whoa, put on the brakes. We need to fix this problem right now so that it doesn't continue and you're not lost, there's that statement, they're not lost in the sauce. They understand what's going on. And so I think it's important for us to note both. So that's why I said specific and timely. And then we get into this second idea of you as an educator making certain that you are doing your necessary reflection. Again, something that I didn't do right off the bat. I did not know to do this off the bat. I did have some great mentors, but there were lots of things going on. And we know how fast and furious things happen in our field and in our classrooms. But this was not something that I did right off the bat. And as a mentor and coach, I use a lot of gym nights material and information to get over the ideas that I'm trying to provide for the educators that I get an opportunity to be able to mentor. And of that is one of his statements that when we reflect, we look back at something, whatever that something might be, whether it's a TEK, whether it's a particular unit, whatever it might be, and assess how we did, because it is a direct reflection what our students are doing as to how we are doing, okay? And then think about how we can do that better, what we learn from it, and doing a true and real reflection. That's what we need to make sure that we're doing and understanding, okay? And I also want to say, with teacher reflection, we have to know that it is how do you say, it is a necessity. So sometimes I know that when I first started, I didn't quite understand what the point was to do a conclusion or a closing, okay? This is like that. The conclusion or the closing of your monitoring of what's going on. This is a necessity. You must do this in order to be an effective educator. You are not going to know where your kids and yourself lie. You could be all over the place if you're not doing both parts. So yes, making certain that number one, you are giving them proper feedback and timely feedback. But then number two, understanding that you as a teacher must also reflect after this is done. How did I teach this? What are some ways that I could do that? I used to love to have our powwows or our meetings where we would come together as educators on our grade level, and we would talk about what strategy you use versus the other person might have used, and then we could have other ways to do it. Okay, so other ways for us to be able to try to teach that skill a little bit different. Try to give an alternate way of utilizing that strategy, okay? And typically, even when you're given the same kind of content, there is a way in which you might implement it that somebody else doesn't. And you getting together with your team, with your grade level, with your campus, vertical alignment, definitely can assist you with your personal reflection. All right. Okay, and here's where I kind of take a pause to talk a little bit about a test prep that we provide here at TT Innovative Solution. We assist with Special Education 161 Texas exam and you passing this exam. And how does it correlate to this that we're talking about with student progress monitoring? Well, in competency 2, it states that you, the educator, understands how to utilize formal and informal assessments and evaluation procedures. We're talking about monitoring progress. We're talking about after the evaluation is done, what am I going to do with said information? And taking that information to help to drive the instructional decisions. After they've taken this assessment, of course, we can do monitoring ongoing. Don't get me wrong, but I'm particularly talking about they've taken this end of the unit test, and I want to make sure that they are scoring better the next time it comes around, that if there is a cumulative type of exam, they are going to score well, okay? So I can do that by reflecting on the information, on the data that I have in front of me. I can do that by looking at the way that I presented the material. And I can also do that by making sure that I have included differentiated instruction within there to service the population of students that I have in my classroom. And all of these I kind of touched on a little bit in some of the previous presentations that I've been able to provide. But here again, I am making a decision about what to use, how to use it, and then how to evaluate it once I'm done with it, and then figuring out how to essentially make it better. Because it's not always that it's going to be these big shifts. You know, sometimes it's like, oh, I didn't throw that whole lesson plan away. That was not good. I need to come back to this whole idea all over again. But sometimes it's just tweaking something, adding in some sort of technology tool that will assist in getting you feedback quicker, or making certain that you have enough tools to prepare you with what you need to be prepared with while you are instructing your students. So I wanted to talk about a few of the tools that, or throw out a few tools that could help you, again, to assist your kids. Things like clicker cards, that's immediate feedback, Kahoot, Nearpod with your type of responses that you could give, a drawing response, Seesaw, one of my favorites for the littles, allowing you to be able to write directly on things and see right there in real time their answers. Stuff like emoji responses, digital stickers of some kind, some picture-based project tracker. So I've taught several grades, but I can recall using this skill in early elementary for my students, and I'm kind of going to lead up to what I'm getting ready to jump in next, and that's about your students, okay? Excuse me. And so I'm leading up to that because it was important for my kids. This is their first time in 3rd grade taking a standardized test. And it was important for my kids and me to give them an opportunity to see how well they're going. I'm going to say out of sight, out of mind. If you're not using a visual tracker, I would suggest that you do so. So I'm going to jump right into our third point for tonight and kind of sum things up and get us into the home stretch. All right. So as you are gathering your data from your formal or informal assessment, I was heavy on the formal tonight by saying that I wanted something that was the end of the unit. and that I was going to grade it. Okay. But you have a couple of ways in which you can then use that gathered data. You can have student self-assessment, or you can have conversations with individually or with your student groups. And some of the things that I wanted to point out in there is that if I'm student focused self-assessment, I can use a visual tracker. So one of the trackers that I use as a educator in the 3rd grade with my students who were first time test taker, first time state assessment takers, I would use a file folder, and on that file folder, it would have our tests. It would have a chart in which they could color up. So I had blocks on there, and sometimes I had the blocks in 10. Sometimes I would use stickers, but regardless of whichever way I used it, it was for them to take their paper, whatever they scored, and then be able to chart it and write a goal, achievement that they would like to do. And then we would have said group conversations with each other, because sometimes I would do it according to scores. And then sometimes I would do it according to the TEK or the tech. Again, don't fight me in the comments about that, the pronunciation. But I would take a variety of opportunities for them to have a visual tracker. In regards to portfolios, being able to see the beginning of their product to the end phase of their product if they're writing a composition, or also having them choose what they wanted to be able to show their parents when it was time for open house. I want you to sift through your papers and make a decision of what you want to show, and then make certain that you have a variety of that. Quick checks for understanding. These are all great ways for you to allow your students to self-assess, okay? For them to be able to know how they are doing. It is just as important as us telling them how they're doing as them to reflect on how well they're doing, just like it's important for us to reflect as well. In the group conversations, we've got collaborations, you're bringing your groups, your small groups together where they can talk about it. You have peer feedback. Maybe you're putting students together that are a few points away from passing, and allowing them to talk about what it is that they could do different, and you sitting in on that conversation, or you having someone else sit in on that conversation so that they could kind of guide them. And then sharing examples of their work amongst each other. These are all great ways for them to be able to do their own reflection and know what's happening within there. So the truth of the matter is that we have lots of data around progress monitoring. We have lots of data in education, period. Okay. But one of the things that we do know, and it's not just from this gentleman, York, that I'm going to mention, but it's some things in general that we know. If you don't go back and reflect on what you've done, you're going to probably keep doing the same thing, and you won't know whether or not you're making great progress or you are declining. But in this quote from York, 2003, it says that good feedback practice can not only provide useful information for your student improving their learning, but it can also help you to give decent information as an educator to improve the learning experience for your students. He goes on to talk about the act of assessing and its effect on assessors are kind of like what I said to you before. We learn from reflection. We then can take that reflection and extend it to help our students to develop better. So this interesting fact, and I have York is the name, not this down at the bottom, but interesting fact from Mr. York is that I hope that tonight's presentation gave you an opportunity to know some areas and get some ideas as to how you could better present progress monitoring opportunities in the classroom with your students, because ultimately that is my goal. I want to thank you for watching. I want to ask, if you have any questions, please attach them to this YouTube live. Our channel again is TT Innovates 553. If you're looking live stream, of course you don't need that, but for those who are would like to follow for our next Monday's opportunity, I would definitely love to have you in the house live in there. I'm going to get better as we do this to start looking to see if I have any live interactions and be able to answer your questions on the spot. But I want you to know that as you collect data and you collect responses from your students, that you are to set clear learning. It will help you to set clear learning objectives and success criteria that can help your students, excuse me, to be ultimately successful. When I say successful, successful is a subjective term, depending on what you think success is. But mine is growth. That you have the ability to support your struggling students, that your advanced learners are making gains. Okay. Again, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you next Monday. If you have any questions, please email us at info@ttinnovate.com. And I see I have another error there. I'm going to correct this because I want to make sure that you have the right information. So I'm going to stop sharing for just a moment. And just say to you again that it has been a pleasure to be able to service this community in the way that I have over the years that I've been within the school districts and things of that nature. I am, again, just in awe of what it is that we are able to do when we put our minds to it. I know that it is not for the weak to be an educator, and I want to continue to provide you with what I believe is great material to help you to continue to be the awesome educators that you are. So with that, I'm going to pull up my screen one more time to thank you properly and ask that you like and share this information with those who you think would be valuable to this. I'm going to keep on doing this. Please connect with us on Twitter. I'm not as active on Twitter. I will be sometime. Facebook and Instagram, we are more active on, and LinkedIn. But again, thank you for this evening. Have a great and wonderful evening. I look forward to seeing you again next Monday, same time, same channel, for our series, It's the Pedagogy for Me. I absolutely love to share my understanding of pedagogy, and I hope that, again, it has been great for you as well. Okay. Well, that's all I have to say for tonight. Good night, everyone. Have a great rest of your week.